The desert tortoise is a dinosaur. It's been around for millions of years, pretty much unchanged. Fish and Wildlife Service consider the tortoise threatened with extinction, at risk of being lost, and it's unfortunately still in decline.
Generally, the biggest threat is what people do or won't do. Specifically, there's a whole list.
Habitat loss, predation, and disease, big three threats to desert tortoise.
We're both degrading habitat and erasing habitat. We fragment habitat by building roads and other linear structures like gas pipelines, utility lines.
So that habitat loss has been a significant driver of the tortoise's decline. But we also see tortoise populations in decline in very, very remote areas, places with no people and no urbanization. And that's due to climate. Climate change is driving invasive species, grasses in particular.
Vegetation changes, weed invasion that damages the nutritional value of what's out there for them to eat because, of course, they are long-lived herbivores.
The most common vegetation out there is creosote bush. They are very long-lived and slow-growing. 3 or 4 feet tall, can be 300-400 years old. And so if it's lost, it takes so long to recover.
And how imperiled a lot of the organisms that live in the desert community, they're suffering.
Pristine open deserts, desert tortoise habitat, store carbon. So when we bulldoze open desert, we are losing the carbon sequestration potential.
We've got a lot of roads, we've got a lot of traffic, we want to build a lot more roads. It has been shown here and in Britain and in Australia that people who apply a targeted technology of road fencing and road crossing make a difference.
Nevada in particular has been implementing a lot of desert tortoise proof fencing along busy highways and byways.
The ability to fence and the ability to provide crossings is a very viable mitigation for roads that have to be built.
Often when an environment where they live is being disturbed or affected by human activities, tortoises are usually the first animal group to drop out.
Large-scale solar projects have been a major impact on the desert tortoise, a conundrum of our time. How to deal with this solar rush.
And so we favor things like rooftop solar on the large scale.
Rooftops, on parking lots, on warehouses, on highways, on canals, in the built environments.
That would reduce the need for putting these large-scale solar developments in the desert. And there are areas in the desert that have been previously disturbed. Those areas might be better suited for solar development than these wide open, pristine areas in the desert.
One of the threats is predation. And so what loves eating baby tortoises? Almost everything in the desert.
In terms of the long-term conservation and population viability, we need to address the raven problem. They're eating so many baby tortoises out there that we're seeing very few make it to adulthood these days. Ravens are exponentially increasing their numbers because of subsidies that they get from humans in town. And then they go out into the desert and eat more baby tortoises, songbirds, lizards, snakes. They're basically eating everything out there.
Reducing the opportunity and the subsidies for predators, keeping the desert neat and clean.
There's things you can do to alleviate the raven problem. You can close your trash bins. Coyotes can be a serious problem for tortoise populations. Near towns, we see a lot of unleashed dogs, and these are either pets or possibly feral dogs. They like to prey on tortoises too. Feral dogs may eat them. The pet dogs are probably just using them as chew toys. See a lot of tortoises that have been maimed, being chewed on.
And they're also in trouble because of a disease. It's naturally occurring in the system. However, there's been a number of years of drought, and so the tortoises are not as resilient. So they've had big die-offs in certain areas.
There are tens of thousands of tortoises in captivity. One of the bigger issues is if you release captives, they're very likely to be carrying diseases. Keep wild tortoises wild, keep captive tortoises captive.
There's also threats from humans that cause deaths to tortoises, accidentally running them over, or some people intentionally run them over or intentionally shoot them.
The Desert Tortoise Council is a nonprofit volunteer group established over 40 years ago with the specific goal mission statement of recovering the desert tortoise in the wild.
The council was formed to provide a cooperative forum among government people, academic people, and local conservation organizations.
We want our membership to grow because we think that the more people that are in our organization, the louder and more powerful our voice is. And we'll continue fighting for tortoises. And that's what it's going to take, is a lot of voices. We can't give up. And it's going to take many, many years for these populations to recover.
Educate people about alternatives, get involved.
We need to change the mentality of our society. Saving the tortoise means forming a coalition for environmental justice and stopping climate-killing sprawl development. And a lot of that is the youth climate movement. Groups like the Center for Biological Diversity, where I work, Plan, Sierra Club, Sunrise Movement.
If a person wants to help finding a local organization, and there are always several, joining them and working with them might be the very best thing any person could do. You can go into the office and help them keep records. You can go to events and help them table. You can help getting materials to teachers.
There are on-the-ground opportunities, planting, weed removal, and trash removal.
Ultimately, one person can absolutely make a difference. The idea is to get involved. Volunteer with your local political action organizations who are pushing for transformational change. It's on every one of us to take action.
The urgent is that the populations are in severe decline almost everywhere across the range. The why is much more difficult because it involves ethics and value judgments.
We don't know what the effects of the tortoise going extinct would be. We know that we are in an extinction crisis.
Desert tortoise is kind of what they call a flagship species. You protect the desert tortoise, you end up protecting a lot of other species.
The desert tortoise is an essential part of the biodiversity of the Mojave Desert. Biodiversity is the building blocks of life. It is what makes life possible. If you want to get to its base root, the extinction crisis threatens humanity's existence on Earth.
We're one of the causes of the problems, and so we need to be part of the solution.